The day Robert Baratheon died, King's Landing felt like it sidrilled, but anxious. The man who'd drunk himself to death on the back of a boar had ruled like a warrior, not a king, and now he was gone, just like that. Lord Eddard Stark, Warden of the North, stood at the edge of the Red Keep's cold balcony, staring at the distant hills. The message had been clear. Robert's final wish was that Ned serve as protector of the realm until Joffrey came of age. But Ned knew the truth. Joffrey wasn't Robert's son. The real heir was Jon. The name settled on his chest like iron. Jon Snow, his nephew, his sister's child, the bastard he had raised as his own to protect Lyanna's secret. And now Robert was gone. Cersei plotted in shadows. Littlefinger whispered venom, and Varys watched like a spider waiting for blood. If Ned walked away, if he left King's Landing, now Joffrey would take the throne, and Jon would be hunted if his truth ever came to light. The Lannisters would rule in Robert's name, but under Cersei's grip. Ned thought of Sansa, still in the lion's den, Arya, wild and unafraid, and Jon, now bound for the wall, unaware of his bloodline, of the throne his veins entitled him to. Honor whispered one thing, but duty, real, cruel duty, screamed another. That night, Ned did what he had never done before. He lied, not to others, but to himself. He told himself it was for peace, for Robert, for the Seven Kingdoms. He claimed the Iron Throne. When the sun rose, it revealed more than the dead king's body. It revealed a man sitting on the Iron Throne, not because he wanted power, but because he feared who might hold it if he didn't. The announcement sent shockwaves across the capital. Eddard Stark has declared himself Lord Protector of the realm and regent to the true heir, yet unnamed, until the matter is investigated. Cersei laughed at first, then screamed, then called for his head. But Ned was fast, too fast. He had already summoned the City Watch to secure the Red Keep. Littlefinger, betrayed by Ned's refusal to play dirty, vanished into the shadows. Varys, amused and concerned, began crafting letters like spider silk to all corners of the realm. Renly Baratheon fled. Stannis Gold, angry Stannis, sent raven after raven demanding answers. But it was Jaime Lannister who struck first. He arrived at the throne room with a dozen gold cloaks, blade drawn, eyes hard. Ned met him not as a friend, nor as an enemy, but as a king. "This is treason," Jaime said through his teeth. "It is justice," Ned replied. "The truth you helped bury with your blade now sits upon my conscience." Jaime looked past Ned at the Iron Throne, then back at the Northman. "I should kill you where you stand, but you won't," and he didn't. Not that day. The ravens flew faster than the winds of winter. The North rallied to Ned's banner, but the South was uncertain. The Reach hesitated. The Vale remained cold. Dawn stayed silent, and the Lannisters began preparing for war. Inside the walls of King's Landing, Ned's rule was clean, stern, and cold. Food was rationed. The small council was dissolved. Spies were hung. Lords were summoned and interrogated. And Jon Snow, still beyond the wall, remained untouched by the chaos his blood had unleashed. But something changed in Eddard Stark. Each passing day made him harder, sharper, colder. He no longer wrote letters to Catelyn. He barely smiled. At Arya Sansa, once promised to Joffrey, cried in silence in her chambers. The Stark banner flew over the Red Keep, and still the realm whispered. They called him the Wolf King. They called him the Frozen Hand. They called him the usurper of the North. And somewhere in the chaos, Cersei disappeared with Tommen and Myrcella, gone without a trace. The Iron Throne did not warm beneath Ned's body. It chilled him deeper with each breath. But he told himself it was worth it. He was saving the realm. He was protecting Jon. But each night, Lyanna's voice haunted his sleep. "Promise me, Ned, ... And the price of that promise was starting to drown him. The Iron Throne was built for monsters. Eddard Stark had known that since the first time he laid eyes on it, those jagged, twisted swords that had killed thousands, now shaped into a seat of power. No man could sit on it for long without bleeding, and bleed he did. Whispers of rebellion spread faster than wildfire. In the south, bannermen still loyal to the Baratheon name began rallying behind Stannis, who declared Ned's actions treasonous and proclaimed himself king by right of blood. In the Westerlands, Tywin Lannister was preparing his forces, his silence more dangerous than a declaration of war. And in the streets of King's Landing, the people muttered about wolves, about winter, about a northerner who didn't belong on a southern throne. But inside the Red Keep, the real battle was being waged in shadows. Varys came to him with news. Cersei has fled to Casterly Rock. She took Tommen and Myrcella. Jaime is still here, but she's abandoned the city. Ned stood by the window, looking over the city he was supposed to protect. She returned with fire. Varys nodded. Or were she, send it. That night, Ned held council with the few allies he still had, said Barristan Selmy. Lord Davos, summoned hastily. From the Stormlands, Maester Pycelle, who could barely hide his Lannister loyalties. Arya listened from behind a pillar, unnoticed as always. We must name the heir, Pycelle urged. Without it, your rule is ... uncertain. I will not name Joffrey, Ned replied coldly, nor any child born of incest. The truth would shame the throne. Davos stepped forward. Then who? Lord Stark, who shall inherit if something happens to you. Silence. Then, slowly, heavily, Ned spoke. Jon Snow. The room froze. He is not just my bastard. He is Rhaegar Targaryen's true-born son, my sister Lyanna's child, and Robert's heir by marriage. The truth was a sword he had kept sheathed for 17 years. Now he laid it bare before men who could destroy him with a whisper. Barristan was the first to speak. If that is true, my lord, ... he is more than an heir. He is a dragon. Ned said nothing. Davos rubbed his chin. And where is this boy now? Beyond the wall. With the Night's Watch. A heavy pause. You plan to bring him back? Pycelle asked. Ned didn't answer directly. If war is coming, the people deserve to know what they're fighting for. Arya confronted him that night. Not as a child, but as his blood. You're going to bring Jon back, aren't you? He didn't lie to her. I am. Why? To make him king, Ned sighed. To give him what was stolen from him. To give him a choice. But he's happy at the wall. He finally has a place. He deserves the truth. She looked at him differently after that. Not as a father, but as a stranger she couldn't quite understand anymore. The raven to the wall was sent under the darkest hour. Ned wrote the letter himself, alone in the candlelight. It was not a command. It was a plea, come south. The time has come for your truth. He sealed it with his own hand, not the hand of the king's seal, but the Stark direwolf. He hoped that would be enough. But the message would never reach Jon. The next morning, the Red Keep shook under the sound of horns. Jaime Lannister had vanished. The gold cloaks turned on each other in the barracks. and across the Blackwater, the banners of House Lannister had risen. Tywin had come. He did not march slowly, like a cautious general. He stormed, 30,000 men, siege engines, gold, fire. King's Landing had seen war before, but never like this. The people panicked, markets were raided, noble houses fled, refugees packed the gates, begging to be let out. And Ned stood atop the ramparts in his heavy black cloak, the direwolf pin weighing more than armor. This was the moment Robert had feared. This was why kings became tyrants, because mercy could be a noose. Ned turned to Seer Barristan. Send ravens to Winterfell, to the Vale, to the Riverlands. We ride the storm now. Barristan hesitated, and Jon, Ned's eyes were cold. Jon will come, he must. But in his heart, he wondered if Jon would ever forgive him for the throne, for the lie, for what was coming. The siege came like a fist, not a slow choke, but a brutal strike. Tywin Lannister's banners surrounded King's Landing within days. His war machines began battering the outer gates. The sky turned black with smoke, and the river choked on the bodies of those trying to escape. The capital was bleeding, and Ned Stark was watching it happen from a throne he never wanted. He refused to call it his, but still, he sat on it, inside the Red Keep. The halls echoed with tension. Servants spoke in whispers. Sansa hadn't left her chambers in days. Arya trained with a wooden sword in the shadowed corridors. A wolf cub snarling in a den of lions. The people outside cried for food. Inside, lords demanded blood. We should open the gates, said Pycelle. Negotiate peace. Tywin may yet show mercy. Ned stood slowly, his eyes like a frozen lake. Mercy is not what he brings revenge. Barristan nodded. He means to destroy you and anyone who stands in his path. Davos, calm and blunt, said what no one dared. We may not win this, Ned. He has numbers, siege power, and loyalty. What do we have? Ned answered without hesitation. The North. He had already sent ravens to Winterfell, to Robb, to the bannermen of House Stark. The North would come, but not fast enough. And now, every choice Ned made bled more than it healed. He couldn't sleep, could barely eat. His hand trembled when he tried to write. Jon's name was on every scroll, every thought, every prayer. The boy he had raised, loved, protected with a lie. And now, he had called him south to a war he never asked for. Was he saving him, or dragging him into the same abyss? One night, Varys returned from the dungeons with grim news. The gold cloaks have turned. Half of them belong to Littlefinger now. He's returned from Harrenhalland. He's been meeting with Lannister spies. Ned clenched his fists. He dares. Varys only smiled sadly. He dares everything. Always has. More than ever, Ned could feel the city slipping through his fingers. He had come to King's Landing for justice, for truth. But all the realm wanted was power and blood. That night, a riot broke out in Fleabottom. Fires spread. A baker's daughter was hung for hoarding bread. Her body swayed outside the Sept of Baelor for days before anyone dared cut her down. Arya found it first. She told Ned with tears in her eyes, pretending she wasn't crying. They said she had food, but she didn't. She was just hungry. Ned said nothing. His jaw was locked. His soul felt hollow. He was becoming what he hated. The city was making him into something colder than winter. Then the letter arrived, stained, torn, delivered by a Night's Watch raven half dead from the journey. It was short, scrawled in John's hand. I received your message. I don't understand it, but I'm coming. I'll find the truth myself. Ned held the letter like it might vanish. Read it 5 times. 10. John was coming. Hope flared. Then dread followed it like a shadow. The truth would save John, or destroy him. And if Tywin broke through the walls before John arrived, all of it would be for nothing. Meanwhile, Sansa finally spoke. She came to Ned in the throne room, pale and shaking. Father, I know you're doing what's right, but people hate us. Ned turned to her slowly. They spit on the Stark name. They say you killed the king, that you stole the throne, that Arya practices witchcraft, that I was meant to be queen, and now I'm nothing. Her voice broke. I can't breathe here. Ned knelt before her, and for the first time in weeks, he felt like a father again, not a king, not a liar, just a man. I know, little bird, I know. But what could he say? That she was safe. That this city wasn't a graveyard with open eyes. He hugged her and said nothing. Outside, the siege worsened. The walls held for now, but food was running out. Tywin had begun building trebuchets. Burning carts filled with disease were launched over the walls each morning and in the dungeons. A spy confessed under Davos, questioning. They're waiting for the gate to fall. Jaime will lead the charge. The Red Keep will burn, and your Snow King will die before he ever sets foot in the city. That was the first time Ned broke. He struck the man with his own hand. Again and again, until Varys and Davos pulled him away. Not out of mercy. Out of fear, Eddard Stark was cracking Dot and Jon. Snow was riding into a war written in lies and sealed in blood. Jon Snow had never seen the South before. Not truly. His whole life had been carved by the cold winds of the north by Castle Blacks. Stone, the whisper of ghosts, and the silence of being a bastard. But now he rode through scorched villages and roads lined with refugees. His Night's Watch cloak had been shed in secret, replaced by a plain traveller's tunic. Ghosts stayed close, red eyes burning in the dark. Men avoided them on the road. Women looked at Jon like he was already a ghost himself. He didn't understand. The letter fully. Ned Stark's message had been riddled with fear and urgency. Come south, your truth awaits. It made no sense. His place was the wall. His oath was his life. But he had come because it was Ned. Because somewhere in his gut, something told him this wasn't just about war. It was about him, and what he found when he reached the Riverlands shattered every sense of stability he'd ever known. The North was marching. Stark banners, thousands, and they welcomed him not as a brother of the Watch but as something more. As a Stark, they called him Lord Snow, whispered of heritage, prophecy, war. He was taken to the command tent, where Robb waited, grown harder. Colder. You shouldn't be here, Robb said. Then why did father call me? Jon demanded. Robb didn't answer at first. Then he said, because you're not who you think you are. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, the walls were screaming. Tywin's trebuchets fired day and night. Food riots broke through the markets. Fires devoured 2 blocks near the dragon pit. Men began eating rats. The poor died quietly. The nobility locked themselves in towers and prayed to gods who had long since stopped listening. And Ned was unraveling. Every step he took echoed in emptiness. Every breath felt stolen. He stood in the throne room longer now, not because he wanted to, but because he couldn't leave it. It had become his prison. His punishment. Varys approached him one night in the dark. You've held off Tywin longer than anyone expected. But it's not enough. You need more than honor. You need terror. Ned looked at him, eyes sunken, voice flat. I am not Ares. No, Varys said. But if you want to survive him, you may need to learn how he thought. Ned said nothing, but that night 3 suspected Lannister spies were dragged into the throne room. They never left in the Riverlands. Jon stood beneath the weirwood tree Robb's men had planted in a ruined field. There, under the bloody leaves, Robb told him the truth. Your mother wasn't a tavern girl. She was my aunt, Lyanna Stark. Jon went still. What? She died in childbirth. Rhaegar's child. Not a bastard, a Targaryen, no. That's not, it is. Jon stumbled back. Ghost growled low beside him. His breath was shallow. The world tilted. He wasn't a Snow. He wasn't even a Stark. He was fire and blood. The blood of the dragon. You're the rightful heir, Jon, to the Iron Throne. But Jon didn't feel like a king. He felt like a lie. Back in King's Landing, Tywin made his move. At nightfall, his men stormed the main gate in silence. The gold cloaks, bribed and turned, opened it without a fight. The lower city fell in hours. The screams woke Sansa. Arya was already at her side, with needle drawn. Come on, she whispered. We're leaving, now. Davos and Seer Barristan met them in the passageways. Varys had arranged a tunnel through the catacombs. One chance, no second dot, and Ned. Ned stood atop the Red Keep. As the flames rose below, he watched the city burn. He had done everything to protect. Jon. And now he was about to lose it all. But the wolf inside him still breathed, as the first wave of Lannister troops stormed the upper keep. Ned drew his sword. Ice heavy, cold. True, if they want this throne, he said to the shadows, they'll have to pry it from my corpse. And in the darkness beyond the hills, Jon Snow rode for King's Landing. He was not coming to sit on the throne. He was coming to end what never should have begun. King's Landing was burning. Smoke blackened the sky like a storm that would never pass, and the city moaned beneath its own weight, screaming, cracking, bleeding. Tywin Lannister's forces swept through the streets like a golden plague, leaving only fire and silence in their wake. Ned Stark stood in the Red Keep, ice clenched in both hands, his knuckles white. The Iron Throne loomed behind him like a beast with 1,000 swords for teeth. He didn't turn to look at it anymore. It had taken too much already. They were coming. Jaime Lannister led the charge through the hallways, golden armor stained with blood, eyes cold and unreadable. He had once smiled like a reckless prince. Now he marched like death. They found Ned waiting. There were no words, just steel. The clash of blades echoed through the throne room like thunder. Ned fought like a man with nothing to lose. He wasn't fighting for power anymore, or even honor. He was fighting for Jon, for the last piece of truth he had left. Jaime was faster, younger, but Ned was relentless, every stroke fueled by pain, by guilt, by 17 years of lies and sacrifice. They fought until blood soaked the marble, until breath came in gasps, until both men knew this would end only one way. Then Jaime's blade slashed low, too fast, too sharp. Ned fell to one knee. Ice clattered beside him. I never wanted this, he muttered. Jaime didn't smile, neither did I. And then the doors burst open. Jon Snow entered the Red Keep through the fire. Ghost at his side, face streaked with ash, sword already drawn. He had arrived with a vanguard of Stark men and Riverland scouts, who had followed his banner once they'd heard his name Targaryen. He didn't look like a prince. He looked like a storm. He climbed the blackened stairs of the castle, heart pounding, until he saw the throne room doors wide open, and he saw Ned, bleeding, on his knees, surrounded by dead gold cloaks, and Jaime, standing above him. No. The word escaped Jon like a curse. Jaime turned, startled, and for the briefest moment, Jon saw the doubt in his eyes, the flicker of hesitation, maybe even regret. Jon raised his sword. Step away from him. Jaime hesitated. You're Jon Snow. Jon advanced slowly. No. I'm Jon Targaryen, and if you take one more step, I'll end your family's name myself. Jaime looked down at Ned, then at Jon, and for once the Kingslayer stepped back. He turned and walked out. Jon knelt beside Ned, trying to stop the bleeding. It was everywhere, warm, dark, final. You came, Ned whispered. Jon's face twisted. Why did you do this? Why didn't you tell me? I was protecting. You lied. I kept my promise. Jon stared at him. You destroyed everything for me. Ned looked into his eyes. So you could build something better. Jon shook his head. I'm not a king. I'm not a Targaryen. Nothing, no, Ned said softly, blood pooling beneath him. You are everything. Arya and Sansa arrived moments later, slipping through the corridors with Davos and Barristan behind them. Sansa dropped to her knees beside her father. Arya stood stone-faced, shaking. I'm sorry, Ned whispered, for all of it. Sansa held his hand. Don't go, please. But he was already fading. He looked up at Jon one last time. Tell them who you are. And then Eddard Starkwarden of the North, Hand of the King, Lord Protector of the realm, the man who had never wanted to rule, closed his eyes for the last time. They buried him in the Godswood, behind the sept, what was left of it. Jon stood over the grave as the city smouldered behind him. He had not asked for this. He had not wanted a crown. But Ned had died to give him one. The North called him Stark. The South whispered Targaryen. And now the throne waited once, more ugly, sharp, soaked in blood. He looked at it with disgust. I don't want it, he said. Varys stood behind him. Then burn it. But Jon wasn't sure if it was that easy, because behind him people were kneeling. Not for Ned, not for a king, but for him. The Red Keep was quiet now, silent even. No swords clashing, no fire crackling, no screams echoing through stone. Just ash settling like snow on everything the war had touched. Jon stood at the foot of the Iron Throne, not sitting, just standing. Ghost lay beside him, head down, ears alert. The throne itself looked smaller now, less like power, more like ruin. He could still see flecks of blood dried on the still Ned's blood. Maybe Robert's, maybe a dozen kings before. You don't want it, do you? Jon turned slightly. Arya had entered without a sound, her face unreadable. She looked older now, not by years, but by war. No, Jon said. I never did. She walked up beside him, looking at the throne as if it had insulted her. You should melt it. Jon smirked faintly. I might, but you won't, she said. Because it's not about the throne, it's about the realm, and whether someone decent ever gets to lead it. He didn't reply, because he didn't know if he was decent. Anymore, the city mourned Ned Stark, like they didn't even deserve to. The man they had once called a usurper, a foreign wolf, was now being spoken of as the only man who tried to save them. Sansa stood beside her brother during the funeral pyres. Robb had returned with half the northern forces, and the Riverland had pledged loyalty to Jon, partly out of respect, partly out of fear of what would happen if they didn't. Jon gave no speeches. He just lit the flame. The people watched in silence as Ned's body burned, wrapped in stark banners. A wolf in the south, dying in a place that had never loved him, only feared him. And still Jon didn't cry. He couldn't. The lords met. A week later, in the Hall of the Throne, where ghosts outnumbered the living, they expected Jon to take the seat. Some even demanded it. "You are the heir," they said. "You have the name, the right." But Jon stood before them and said the one thing they didn't expect. No gasps, murmurs, fury, confusion. He raised a hand. "I didn't fight for this throne. I didn't lose my father to sit on it. He wanted a better world, not just a new king." Lord Royce asked sharply, "Then what are you, if not king?" Jon looked at them all, every lord, every knight, every whispering hand of the realm. "I am Jon, that's all. And this throne is cursed. It takes everything from those who touch it." He turned to Sansa. "You take the north, rule it as you see fit. To Davos, you guide the seas. Make them safer than they've ever been. To Arya, you don't need borders. Be the storm they don't see coming." And to the throne he turned his back. That night, as the moon glowed over the Red Keep, Jon entered the throne room alone. He looked at the Iron Throne one last time. Then, with quiet fury, he placed a torch at its base, oiled it, and set it ablaze. The steel screamed as it melted slowly, reluctantly, centuries of ambition and death liquefying into a puddle of rust and shadow. He watched until there was nothing left but black smoke and silence. By dawn he was gone. No title, no crown, no army. He rode north with Ghost, through lands still haunted by war, past Winterfell, past the Wall, into the cold, wild nothing. He didn't leave a note, didn't say goodbye, but the realm remembered him. The bastard who burned the throne, the wolf born in fire, the king who chose to walk away, and deep in the north, where names didn't matter, Jon Snow disappeared. Into the snow and shadow. Not a king, not a prince, not a Stark, not a Targaryen. Just a man, and maybe, finally, free.